Prior to 1975, Tuol Sleng was a high school. When the Khmer Rouge came to power, it was converted into the S21 prison and interrogation facility. Inmates were systematically tortured to extract confessions, after which they were executed at the killing fields of Chung. S21 processed over 17,000 people, less than a dozen of whom survived. The building now serves as a museum, a memorial, and a testament to the madness of the Khmer Rouge regime. And it was one of between 150 to 196 torture and execution centers established by the Khmer Rouge and the secret police known as Sante Bell, means keepers of peace. To accommodate the victims of purges that were important enough for the attention of the Khmer Rouge, a new detention center was planned in the building that was formerly known as Tuol Sleng High School, named after a royal ancestor of King Norodom Sihanouk. The 5 buildings of the complex were converted in March of April 1976 into a prison and an interrogation center. Other buildings in town had already been used as prison S21. The Khmer Rouge renamed the complex Security Prison 21 and construction began to adapt the prison for the inmates. The buildings were enclosed in electrified barbed wires, the classrooms converted into tiny prison and torture chambers, and all windows were covered with iron bars and barbed wire to prevent escapes and suicides. At any given point, the prison held between 1,000 to 1,500 prisoners. They were repeatedly tortured and coerced into naming family members and close associates, who were in turn arrested, tortured, and killed. In the early months of S21's existence, most of the victims were from previous Lon Nol regime and included soldiers, government officials, as well as academics, doctors, teachers, students, factory workers, monks, engineers, etc. Later, the party leadership's paranoia turned on its own ranks, and purges throughout the country saw thousands of party activists and their families brought to Tuol Sleng and murdered. Those arrested included some of the highest ranking politics such as Khoi Thon, Von Vet, and Hu Nim. Although the official reason for their arrest was espionage, these men have been viewed by Khmer Rouge leader Pol Pot as potential leaders of coup against him. Prisoners' families were sometimes brought in masses to be interrogated and later executed at the execution center. Upon arrival at the prison, prisoners were photographed and required to give detailed autobiographies beginning with their childhood and ending with their arrest. After that, they were forced to strip to their underwear, and their possessions were confiscated. The prisoners were then taken to their cells. Those taken to the smaller cells were shackled to the walls or the concrete floor. Those who were held in the large mass cells were collectively shackled to a long piece of iron bar. The shackles were fixed to alternating bars. The prisoners slept with their heads in opposite directions. They slept on the floor without mats, mosquito nets, or blankets. They were forbidden to talk to each other. The day began in the prison at 4:30 a.m. When prisoners were ordered to strip for inspection, the guards checked to see if the shackles were loose or if the prisoners had hidden objects they could use to commit suicide. Over the years, several prisoners managed to kill themselves, so the guards were very careful in checking the shackles and cells. The prisoners received 4 small spoonfuls of rice porridge and a watery soup of leaves twice a day. During drinking water without asking the guards for permission resulted in serious beatings. Almost every action had to be approved by one of the prison's guards. The prisoners were sometimes forced to eat human feces and drink human urine. The unhygienic living conditions in the prison caused skin diseases, lice, rashes, ringworm, and other ailments. The prison's medical staff were untrained and offered treatment only to sustain prisoners' lives after they had been injured during interrogation. When prisoners were taken from one place to another for interrogation, they were blindfolded. Guards and prisoners were not allowed to converse with each other. Most prisoners at S21 were held there for 2 to 3 months. Within 2 or 3 days after they were brought to S21, all prisoners were taken for interrogation. The torture system at Tuol Sleng was designed to make prisoners confess to whatever crimes they were charged by their captors. Women were sometimes raped by interrogators. Even though sexual abuse was against democratic Kampuchea policy, the perpetrators who were found out were executed. Although many prisoners died from this kind of abuse, killing them outright was discouraged since the Khmer Rouge needed their confessions. In 1979, the prison was uncovered by the invading Vietnamese army. At some point between 1979 and 1980, the prison was reopened by the government of the People's Republic of Cambodia as a historical museum memorializing the actions of the Khmer Rouge regime. Some prisoners were cut with knives or suffocated with plastic bags. Other methods for generating confessions included pulling out fingernails while pouring alcohol on the wounds, holding prisoners' head underwater, and the use of waterboarding technique. The inmates were hosed down every 4 days to wash themselves. On 26th of July 2010, the extraordinary chambers in the courts of Cambodia convicted the prison's chief, Kang Kek Lev, for crimes against humanity and grave breaches of the 1949 Geneva Conventions. He died on 2nd September 2020 while serving a life sentence.